Hello everyone, this is Akifa. Welcome to Advanced Communication Networks project presentation. We are group 14, where I and my teammate Rifat will give you a brief description regarding our project. So let me give you an overview first on what we are going to cover. We will talk about our deliverables, the output of the project along with the features included, which tools we use to build this project, a background or basic idea on the terms related to this project, the system architecture, a chart on the architecture of this system, and then Rifat will be giving a demo of the output along with some explanations of the code, future plan regarding this project. We have some better features to include here lately, and then he will wrap up the presentation. In this project, we utilized the concepts of sockets to make a multifunction Java application-based multi-threaded client-server architecture. We built a server that can communicate with multiple client instances and can create communication channels between them using socket programming. We also included a feature where the clients can play games with the server. Users will be able to play 2 games right now, which they need to choose just after connecting to the server. In terms of tools, there is no need of any external hardware or software needed to run this program. You of course need a laptop or a desktop. Among a number of programming languages, we chose Java to build this project and used the IntelliJ IDE platform. Now, what is socket? A network socket is a software structure within a network node of a computer network that serves as an endpoint for sending and receiving data across the network. So what is this basically? This is actually that sockets are required for one computer to communicate with another computer. So basically it opens up a layer of communication from one device to another by binding the port or IP address together. The structure and properties of a socket are defined by an application programming interface for the networking architecture. Such APIs are also considered the network standard for TCP/IP. Socket programming, on the other hand, is a way that how applications will be communicating with each other over the internet. It shows us how to use socket APIs to establish a secure communication channel between local and remote processes. Socket programming is commonly used for communication channels between machines using the transfer control protocol. The communication channel can be either connection oriented or connectionless. Client. In computing, a client is a piece of computer hardware or software that accesses of a service made available by a server as a part of the client-server model of computer networks. A server is a piece of computer hardware or software that provides functionality for other programs or devices. This architecture is called the client-server model. Well, those are the formal definition. Let me explain this to you. This is very simple. If you think of your computer or your laptop or any machine that you use to connect internet, when you type a website here, a website address, your computer sends out a request. Your computer sends out a request to the server, and then the server actually checks, it validates if the request you made is valid or invalid. If it's invalid, of course, this is going to give you an error. If that is valid, the server is going to respond to you. So you, being the client, make a request, and which fulfill the request is the server. So this is how a client-server model works. Multi-threaded server. The name suggests it all, right? A server having more than one thread is known as multi-threaded server. When a client sends the request, a thread is generated through which a user can communicate with the server. This chart will be helpful for better understanding. Here we can see that when user 1 made a request, thread 1 is generated. Similarly, when user 2 made the request, thread 2 is generated. Just like that, user n, of course, it's a variable, and then thread n is generated. So this is how actually multi-threaded server works. We need to generate multiple threads to accept multiple requests from multiple clients at the same time. In server-client connection, the server program is exposed via a socket connected to a port number. Here in this project we use 1234 as the port number. Utilizing the port number, a client program can then connect its socket to the server socket, and whenever the client program writes, it is read as stdin in the server program and stdout from the server program, which can be later read by the client socket. In order for an user to perform the I/O operations, it needs to request access and obtain permission from the server for the files or devices it desires to use. Now let's have a look into our system architecture. We have created three classes: server, client, and client handler. These are the methods we used for this project. Here, server class is the class. This uses the concept of socket programming together with thread mechanisms. The accept method of server socket class is used to accept the incoming request of the socket. To complete the request, the security manager checks the host address, port number, and local port. The server method is invoked in this newly created thread object, which means to begin the execution of the thread. The closed method, however, of server socket class is used to close this socket. Any thread currently blocked in accept method will throw a socket exception. The associated channel is also closed by it if it has any. Client class. Here the input stream and the output stream object is extracted from the current requested socket object. The run method. A run method of thread class is called if the thread was constructed using a separate runnable object. Otherwise, this method does nothing, then returns. When the run method calls, the code specified the run method is executed. Buffer reader and writer. These methods, of course, reads and writes. And the flush method. This flush method just makes sure that any buffer data is written to the disk. So as you can see in the diagram, that a client made a request to the server. The server, after accepting that request, creates a new thread. Each time the client, as many times as the client sends the request, the server will create one new thread for each request, and then the client handler will give a response to the client. So that's it from my end. Now my team member Rifat will give you an explanation from the coding side and will give you a demo on our output.
Sakifa already talked about the system architecture. So here we have the server side, client side, and the client handler side, and we can see some of the methods and function we used in the application. Now we will look at how the program actually works. So in our project we used three files, so the server file, the client handler, and the client file, and we have two classes, so the server class and the client class. So for the server file, this is mainly responsible for starting the server and closing the server, and we have the client handler file. This is mostly responsible for handling the client. So whenever a client joins, it broadcasts a message saying a client has entered. And also, whenever a client is leaving the chat, it broadcasts that a client has left the chat. And we also have the close everything function. So whenever we are closing a tab, we don't receive any errors. And we have the client class here. This is responsible for sending messages and also responsible for listening for messages. So whenever we're sending a message or receiving a message from another client. And we also have the close everything function here. So whenever we are crossing out any tabs, we don't receive any errors. And we also have the gaming functions here. So we included 2 games. So let's see how it works. So initially we start by starting the server class. So whenever we start, a tab opens up saying servers are started and is waiting for connection. And after that we go to the client file, and similarly we also start the client file. So after the client file is run, we receive a prompt saying enter your name. So whenever I enter a name, it gives me options to choose from. So either if we want to chat with others, or we want to play rock paper scissors, or we want to play guessing numbers. And at the same time, whenever we enter our name at the server side, a notification, we can see a new user has joined. So from here we can choose from 1 to 3. So if we want to play rock paper scissors, we can just input 2, and it says welcome Rifat, let's play rock paper scissors. Please choose R for rock, paper, and S for scissors. So we choose whatever we want to input. So let's choose rock. So it says the computer also chose rock, and it's a tie. So when the game finishes, it gives us the menu again, saying if you want to continue or we want to go back to the menu. So if we input Y, it takes us back to the menu, saying if you want to chat with others, play rock paper scissors and play number guessing game again. So now if you want to chat, we just want enter, and it says welcome Rifat, let's start chatting. But since we only have one client, we cannot chat any others. So in order to chat, what we do is we run the client class again. So we see another prompt opening up. So this is a new user. So if I type a name, similarly it gives me the options again. So from here, for this user, if we chat use the chat options, so we input 1. So it says welcome, let's start chatting. And then if you go to the previous client, now we can see that it says Akifa has entered the chat. And also in the server side, it says another new user has joined. So since we have 2 users now, they can both start chatting. So if the second user types hi, we can see the other prompt, it says hi. And also if we go to the server side, we can see the server is not able to see any of the chats. So again, if the second user replies hello, and we can go back to the second user, it shows their chats. And since we don't know when user is done chatting, so if while they're chatting, if user wants to go back to the menu, users have to completely close the tab. So when we close the tab, the previous user knows that the other user has left the chat. And so in order to join again, we have to run the client file again. So again, we come up with the menu asking for the name. So we type the name again. So now if the user wants to play the guessing game, they can type in 3, and it says welcome to the guessing game. And so if you get back to the previous user, it does not get the notification saying that another user has joined, because the other user is playing other games now. So here, so the game is a guessing game saying guess a number from 1 to 20. So user guesses a number. So it says your guess is smaller than the secret number. So we guess a bigger number, so let's say 15. and now your guess is greater than the secret number, so we guess a number less than 15, so let's say 12. Again, it says your guess is greater than the secret number, so let's type 10. Okay, it says your guess is correct, congratulations. So, and then we get the menu saying if you want to go back to the main menu again. So if we type Y, it takes us back to the menu, and now if we enter 1, it says welcome, let's start chatting. And if we go back to the previous client, now it says that another users have chatted and they can start chatting again. So for now, we only have the option where users can play the games with the system itself, and in the future we want to make it in a way, we want to make it more interactive, so the users can play the games with each other. Initially we only had the option where the clients could exchange messages with each other and there was no gaming functions, but we thought to make it a little more interesting, we can add the game, so whenever there is a single client in the server, when they're waiting for their friends to connect to the chat, they can just, to pass time, they can just play game against the server. And of course in the future we plan it to make it in a way so the clients can play games with each other, and also so that our application can connect clients in large scale. And we also want the option where they can exchange images and videos. So we are done with the presentation, and these are the references. Thank you. Feel free to ask any question.